ease the frustration and the fatigue, can we explain to double vaccinated Victorians what freedom might look like? Are they going to be able to sit in a pub? If you can prove that you've had 2 doses, will you be able to have a picnic with friends and family outside?
As I said yesterday, we're going to have some pilot work done quite soon, because you've got to make sure that the technology works and that the whole system is ready to go. That'll be predominantly outdoors. We're already talking with the hospo industry, for instance, so there will be trials. Hopefully we can get regional Victoria out of the lockdown next week. That's great news for regional Victoria, but it would also be a pretty logical place for us to do some of this piloting work. Doesn't mean that regional Victoria would only be open to vaccinated people. It would be open to everyone in regional Victoria, but we would use that as that's a safe place in where we can do some of these trials and pilots. I can see a situation as we get certainly 70 and then definitely 80, we would have some outdoor drinking and dining. We would have all sorts of different activity that you wouldn't even think of now. The bias will be towards indoor. But for fully vaccinated people, there'll be more and more things that we can do. That'll move inside. That whole the economy, as best it can, will operate as close to normal as possible for people that have had 2 doses. So everything from restaurants, cafe, retail, sporting events, theatre, the list goes on and on. That's what we're aiming to. That's what we're aiming to build, and that's what I'm confident we'll be able to do.
And is that just using the check-in app? Would you essentially download your COVID vaccination certificate and it would show a tick? Is that how it would work?
There's a lot of work going on between technology ministers, and I think it's fair to say that there's a leading partnership between Victoria, so Minister Pearson and Minister Dominello, and the Commonwealth. I think Stuart Robert is the relevant federal minister. They're all working very hard to make sure a National Cabinet got some briefings on this. We'll be ready to go later on this month, where you'll check in and there's a compatibility. It's essentially the same process that you QR in, and that also tells the vendor, the publican, the restaurateur, whoever it might be, the owner of the business, tells them whether you are vaccinated or not. They don't store that information, but you either get a ticker across, and on that basis, you're either allowed in or you're not.
With vaccination rates more forward than you originally thought, what will restrictions look like perhaps next week for regional Victorians?
Well, regional Victorians, we hope to end the lockdown as soon as we can. So I haven't got advice to do that yet. As you well know, we look at the most contemporary picture, and when we get all that data in for what's occurred this weekend, what occurs earlier this coming week, hopefully we can make a decision that takes the lockdown off in regional Victoria. I would just indicate that Shepparton is in a slightly different position, and I think the people of the Golden Valley know that, what they've been through. So it might be saving except for Shepparton right now, but I think they would be catching up quite soon thereafter. But they're not decisions that have been made yet. That would be an end to the lockdown. So the 5 reasons to leave home, so 4 reasons plus going and getting the jab, would no longer apply. So there'd be a greater freedom of movement. There'd be a greater economic activity. They would be in a form. They would be open. It's not going to be, back to normal, because there's still we have to assume some virus in regional Victoria, and there's also the risk of virus being exported from Melbourne into regional Victoria. And you would recall last year we had a ring of steel around Melbourne. I've currently got all of those police officers and more, I should say the Chief Commissioner does, up on the Murray, making sure that we don't have further incursions.